Hello, I'm Randy Padfield with AIN TV. I'm sitting here with David Davis, Senior Vice President and General Manager of CIT Aerospace Business Aircraft. David, we can hardly open a newspaper these days without seeing some of the after effects of the credit crunch and the housing crisis. Now, your company obviously makes loans to people and companies wanting to buy a business jet or a helicopter. What effects is the industry seeing from the housing crisis today?
There's no question that the issues related with subprime mortgage and all the other things with housing has affected the financial services industry globally. It's one of the benefits of the globalization of finance today, in that when there's problems, everyone experiences the problems. I don't know if you've seen the release that came out from the European finance ministers that were predicting that Europe may suffer more from the U.S. housing crisis than the U.S. economy will. CIT, like most major financial services companies, we had our issues with subprime mortgage lending as well. It has not necessarily flowed into our transportation business. It's an interesting dynamic today in that the financial services industry experienced the worst quarter of the fourth quarter of 2007 since the industry experienced since the Great Depression. And if you compare that to general aviation, corporate aviation is the best quarter ever on record. So it's an interesting dynamic between the two businesses. There is fallout from this, there's no question. There is a credit crunch, there is a widening of spreads, but I think you will continue to see support for corporate aviation worldwide from all major financial houses. I think it'll take a while for all of this to flush out through the system. I think it's interesting in that the third factor in that dynamic between corporate aviation having the best year on record and financial services having some of the worst time, that on top of it being an election year in the U.S. That's another major variable to throw into this, like all the things that the various different candidates are throwing out on supporting people in home mortgage problems. It's interesting to see how this will all sort out. It will not be just exclusively market driven. There will be a political influence into some of these decision-making processes as well.
Numerous people in aviation finance have told me that there is a lag in the aviation industry, especially business aviation industry, following the stock market and then lagging it by 6 months to a year. Do you think that could be a concern now?
There's a lag going in, there's a lag going out. There's no question. One of the major differences this time in the event of an economic slowdown globally is that so many of these aircraft are to be delivered, like we said, 2, 3, 4 years out. If you have a multi-million-dollar deposit, are you going to cancel that order? If you have $15, $20 million already paid in progress payments, you'll take delivery of that aircraft. And the other very interesting thing, I mean, there are so many pieces to the puzzle, is more than half of these aircraft on order, the new aircraft, are ordered by customers outside the U.S. The last time there was a slowdown, you were looking at 75 to 80% of the aircraft were U.S. orders. Today, you're looking at about 50%. So that's another major change in the dynamic in the past.
Okay, let's assume that you're on the golf course in the foursome, and one of the people in the foursome has just had a ride on a business jet, maybe a charter aircraft, and he's just really excited, wants to buy his own aircraft now, and he has the means to do it. What advice would you give him?
I think the first thing I would ask that person would be, are you sure you understand what's involved in the process of acquiring your own jet aircraft, of staffing pilots, of maintenance, of hangaring, of insurance, of all the other things associated with that, that maybe it's not necessary for you to buy your own aircraft. Maybe you should look at one of the card providers. Maybe you should look at a share purchase. There are a variety of things that make an aircraft available to you, and you haven't gone completely into acquiring your own aircraft yet. That's probably the first thing I would get into the conversation with, to make sure that they knew, do I really want to have my own airplane, or do I simply want to have access to an aircraft? And if you're in the process of acquiring an aircraft and it's a major unit and that's what you've decided to do, we would provide guidance as an added value service in what's the best process to match an aircraft to what that customer really wants and needs.
David, thank you very much for talking with us, and look forward to seeing you around the industry.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today, and if there's anything I can do in the future, please give me a call.